Right, hello Instagram. I know it's been a while. My last post was in September 2024, I think, and I was talking about writing a new book. I haven't finished yet, but I have done a little bit, so I'm going to start reading it to you, okay? It's called The Bromsgrove Deposit. Chapter 1. The Beginning. Mia Carter had worked at the Nat West on Bromsgrove High Street for 6 years. She knew every crack in the marble floor, every code to the supply closet, the exact time the overnight security guard took his 10-minute smoke break out the back by his bin shed. She'd helped old ladies count their pension coins, walked nervous teens through opening their first saving accounts, and once talked a distraught man out of emptying his life savings to send to a scam email. Honestly, it wasn't just part of her job; it was how she'd been raised. But that was before her little sister Lila got sick. At 12, Lila was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The NHS treatment brought them time, but when the cancer returned 6 months later, the doctor said the only chance was an experimental immunotherapy trial in London. It wasn't available on the health service, and it cost £280,000. Mia sold her car, her late mother's jewellery, even the sofa from their tiny terraced house in Catshill. She organised bake sales outside the Morrison, set up a GoFundMe that shared Lila's drawings of unicorns and rainbows, and begged every distant relative she could track down. By the end of 3 months, she'd raised 47,000. It was nothing compared to what they needed. The bank's vault held more than that in loose change on a busy Saturday. She didn't plan it alone. Her oldest friend Jake had been a mechanic since he left school. Guys, if you see me stuttering, it's because I was born with a stutter, so I am so sorry about that. Let me just put my phone on Do Not Disturb, because my mate keeps spamming me. She didn't plan it alone. Her oldest friend Jake had been a mechanic since he left school. He'd fixed Mia's car for free since Lila got sick, and when she finally told him what she was thinking, he didn't judge her. I don't know the first thing about robbing a bank, he said, wiping grease off his hands with a rag, but I know how to drive a car fast and not get caught. Count me in. The third member of the ragtag team was So, the pediatric nurse who'd sat with Mia in the hospital waiting room, more nights than she could count. So knew the trial's payment deadline down to the hour, and she promised to make sure every penny went straight to the hospital. No detours, no mistakes. I've seen too many kids die because their families couldn't pay. She said quietly, I won't let Lila be one of them. They picked a Tuesday. The bank was quiet after the morning rush. The manager was off sick, and the only other teller working that afternoon was Sarah, a student who always took her lunch break at 1:15 sharp. Mia had timed everything down to the second. At 1:14, Jake pulled his beat-up van into the loading bay behind the bank. He had removed the license plates and covered the windows with black plastic, but his hands were shaking so bad he could barely turn the key in the ignition. So waited in the passenger seat, clutching a folder full of Lila's medical papers, like a salesman. Mia walked behind the counter as usual, but today she was wearing a hoodie under her blazer, and her bag was not her usual lunchbox, but a pair of latex gloves and a small fake handgun. Chicken made from a 3D printer. When Sarah left for lunch, Mia locked the front door and flipped the closed sign around. Something she'd done 100 times before. When the system crashed, or they needed to count the tills early. The fault was in the basement. Mia knew the combination. It had been the same since she started working there. And the manager had trusted her with it after she had covered for him during his wife's surgery. She'd type in the numbers, her fingers trembling, and the heavy metal door clicked open. The smell of dust and money hit her like a wave. Stacks of notes were piled in a locked compartment. She had spent years balancing these accounts, but now she was filled her bag with as much as she could carry. 5 minutes, Jake's voice cracked through the earpiece. The earpiece she was wearing. Police do a drive-by of the high street at 1:20 every Tuesday. Mia's hands moved faster. She didn't take more than 280,000 exactly. The amount the trial cost, she'd written the number on her wrist in permanent marker, so she wouldn't take a penny more. Done, she said, zipping up the bag. But as she turned to leave, she'd heard a voice. Mia? It was Miss Higgins, an 82-year-old customer who came in every week to deposit her pension. She had forgotten her umbrella that morning and had come back to get it. She was standing at the door, staring at Mia's hoodie and the bag in her hand at the open vault behind her. Mia's throat went dry. Miss Higgins, I can explain. The old woman looked at her for a long moment, then nodded toward the bag. It's for Lila, isn't it? She'd seen the poster in the bank and had dropped £20 in Mia's collection tin the week before. Mia nodded, tears spilling down her face. I didn't know what to do. Miss Higgins walked over and patted her arm. When my husband had lung cancer, we lost our house trying to pay for treatment. The system doesn't care about people like us. Now go on, before someone else sees you. She picked up her umbrella and walked out, closing the door softly behind her. Mia ran to the loading bay. Jake helped her heave the bag into the van, and they pulled away. Just as the police car turned to the high street, Zoe was already on the phone to the hospital, arranging for the payment to be made anonymously. They didn't meet again for a month. Mia took a leave of absence from the bank, saying she needed to care for Lila. Jake went back to fixing cars. So kept nursing. The police investigated the robbery, but there was no leads, no witnesses, no fingerprints, and no evidence that pointed to anyone. Miss Higgins never said a word to anyone, though. Lila started the trial the week before. Within 2 months, her scans showed the cancer was shrinking. By the end of the year, she was in remission. Mia never spent any of the money on herself. She went back to work at a different bank in Worcester, and every month she put aside as much as she could afford into the saving accounts. She didn't know if she'd ever be able to pay the money back, but she promised herself she'd try. Sometimes when she walked down Bromsgrove High Street, she'd see Miss Higgins sitting on the bench outside the cafe. The old woman would wave, and Mia would wave back. They never talked about that Tuesday afternoon, but they didn't need to. They both knew some laws were made to be broken when the alternative was losing someone you loved. A year later, Lila drew a picture of a rainbow over the Bromsgrove skyline. She gave it to Mia and wrote on the back, "Thank you for saving my life." Mia hung it above her bed where she could see it every day. It was worth every moment of fear, every secret that carried every rule she'd broken. Guys, stay tuned for chapter 2 tomorrow.